welcome to Rotted Review of the Day, and today it is December 18th, which means we are 1 week away from Christmas, and we're also 1 week away from my 300th review, so a lot of celebration coming down the pike here. But for today, I am reviewing the 2018 movie Krampus Origins. Now, I had reviewed a bunch of Krampus movies at this point, but this is the third in the series that was written by Robert Conway, but it's also the first where he handed over the directorial reins over to Joseph Mba. The previous two movies, Krampus The Reckoning and Krampus Unleashed, he wrote and directed, and this time he did not. Now, what I will say about this movie in relation to the trilogy overall is that it was marginally better than Krampus Unleashed, still not quite as good as Krampus The Reckoning, but I think it's important at this point that we pull back just a little bit and gain a little bit of perspective, because really, taking the broader view, we are talking about varying grades of quality shit. This movie is, this is of the same ilk. I'm reviewing this through the eyes and through the lens of a horror movie reviewer that also kind of specializes in the bottom of the barrel stuff, as I kind of went over in my last review of Krampus Unleashed. So, we are well beyond, taking the entire gradient of quality of film, we are way beyond the point in which mainstream movies would come out in theaters and everybody would just leave before it's finished. We are now past that point, and we are honing in and zooming in on this subsection of basically $50,000 indie crap. Not to say that all indie movies are crap, I really don't believe that, but in the world of horror, we do get this subsection, this little sub-genre nugget of typically it would come on the heels of major Hollywood productions like Krampus, and then kind of capitalize in on that. And if it manages to find some minor level of success within its own little bubble, then it'll continue on making these really cheap knockoff continuations. So now we're at that little window here, and we are talking about the varying grades of quality within it. Basically, how bad is bad. And Krampus The Reckoning, well, it was bad, but it wasn't terrible. Krampus Unleashed, that was terrible. This one, slightly better than terrible. So I really don't want to have any misgivings. This is not a good movie. This is not one that I would recommend to anybody. I'll kind of go over that at the end here. But for those of us out there that do embrace the cheese and the schlock and the low-budget productions out there, but there are still movies out there that will make you press that stop button, I would say that this is probably not quite that bad, but it's getting there. So in this movie, we once again redo the character of Krampus. That's one thing I don't get about this, is that this is the third movie in this no connection trilogy, but even with no connection, I don't see the purpose in retconning your own character in three movies that are within 6 years of each other, I think. 5 years? Regardless, it's like the character design changes, the mythos changes, everything about Krampus changes, and I get that it's kind of an open-ended villain, and that's honestly one of the reasons that these movies keep getting made. If you think I'm done with the Krampus franchise, think again, because there is more out there that I will be reviewing. But that's one of the reason that these get made, is because it's an open-ended villain that doesn't have any kind of licensing rights attached to it. It's an easy mark to make a generalized horror movie. And I don't really see the purpose of having the same writer-director over the course of three movies within 5 or 6 years of each other continually retcon his own villain. But regardless, we did it again, and now this time, instead of having a CG monster that kind of looked pretty interesting, and then we moved on to basically a big Muppet with fangs, and now we're at the point where somebody dusted off their cosplay of Sauron, and that's what we're using. So in this movie, we have the legend of Krampus during the course of World War I. That's another thing I don't get, is why is this called Krampus Origins when we're talking about the origins of a centuries-old timeless villain? Let's go back to World War I. It's definitely not the origin of the character, despite the title. So this time, this particular legend of Krampus takes place as summoning a creature from an incantation of an ancient book, the book is basically kind of switching hands, and ultimately it winds up in the hands of one of the soldiers' widows, who has taken up some work at a Catholic orphanage. And then we have one of the older students read the incantations from the book after stealing it, and so on and so forth, and blood and guts and orphanages and so on. Krampus is essentially raising hell from there. This, like I said, this is just not a good movie. And the characters, I think, were marginally better than the second film, than Krampus Unleashed, just because those characters were written so poorly. This one kind of manages to have some semblance of plot, some semblance of conflict, some semblance of stakes. Definitely not anything as well fleshed out as Krampus the Reckoning, but at least it tried a little harder. Nobody pulled in overtime on this one, I don't think, but there was some effort put in on that, and so I will acknowledge that. This is not the worst movie I've ever seen, honestly, by a far cry. So I'm going to go ahead and throw up all the scores here. As always, 4 different categories, each one worth up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. I mean, I already kind of answered my own question here, but, I typically wrap these reviews up with the question of would I recommend this movie? I would say no. I mean, even if you like the cheesy, schlocky shit out there, I would say it's really just not worth it. I would watch Krampus the Reckoning on that basis. But then I would skip the remaining 2. So, like I said, if you think that I am done with the Krampus legend, think again, because there is more out there. I have done Krampus. I have done Krampus the Christmas Devil. I have done Krampus the Devil Returns. I have done Krampus the Reckoning. I have done Krampus Unleashed. I have now done Krampus Origins. I've also done Mother Krampus, but there's still another Mother Krampus out there, and I bet if I dig a little deeper, I'm going to find another 1 or 2 gems out there that I can dust off and take a look at. So I think that should about do it for this one. I really thank you for joining me here today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. If you like this video, please click like and subscribe. And if you want to support me further, my Patreon and my merchandise storefront links are below. Remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.